The massive alien warship Thunderbolt dropped out of hyperspace with a flash of blue light. Its sleek, dark hull gleamed against the backdrop of stars as it approached the bustling intergalactic space station known as Nexus 7. The ship's arrival caused a stir among the station's inhabitants, who gathered at viewing ports to catch a glimpse of the infamous vessel. Commander Zaxthor stood on the bridge of the Thunderbolt, his four arms crossed over his broad chest. His scaly green skin shimmered under the soft glow of the ship's lights, and his yellow eyes narrowed as he studied the space station. Zaxthor was a decorated general of the Kraxan Empire, known throughout the galaxy for his tactical brilliance and unforgiving nature. "Prepare for docking," he growled to his crew, his voice deep and gravelly. The bridge officers, all members of the reptilian Kraxan species, scrambled to obey their commander's orders. As the Thunderbolt glided towards its assigned docking bay, Zaxthor turned to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Vex. "Assemble the elite squad. We'll conduct an inspection of this station's security forces. I've heard rumors of their incompetence, and I intend to see for myself." Vex nodded, her smaller frame tense with anticipation. "Yes, Commander. The squad will be ready in 5 minutes." The Thunderbolt docked with a gentle thud, and soon after, Commander Zaxthor marched down the ship's ramp, followed by 10 of his best soldiers. Each Kraxan warrior stood over 7 feet tall, their muscular bodies covered in state-of-the-art battle armor. As they entered the station, aliens of various species stopped to stare. Some looked on in awe, while others hurried away in fear. The Kraxans had a fearsome reputation, and Commander Zaxthor's presence only added to the tension. The group made their way through the crowded main concourse, passing by shops, restaurants, and administrative offices. The station was a melting pot of galactic cultures, with creatures of all shapes and sizes going about their daily lives. Zaxthor's eyes darted from side to side, taking in every detail. He noticed a group of jellyfish-like beings floating near a food court, their translucent bodies pulsing with bioluminescent light. In another corner, a pair of rock-skinned giants haggled over the price of rare minerals. As they approached the security sector, a small furry alien with large ears scurried up to them. "Welcome to Nexus 7, Commander Zaxthor," it squeaked, bowing low. "I am Grix, the station's liaison officer. We are honored by your visit." Zaxthor looked down at Grix, his expression unreadable. "Save your formalities, little one. Take me to your security chief. I wish to inspect your forces." Grix nodded nervously and led the way, his short legs working overtime to keep up with the Kraxan's long strides. They passed through several security checkpoints, each one manned by a mix of different alien species. Finally, they reached the main security hub, a large circular room filled with monitors and control panels. In the center stood a tall, blue-skinned alien with 4 arms, similar to Zaxthor, but more slender in build. "Commander Zaxthor," the blue alien said, bowing slightly. "I am Chief Security Officer Azara. Welcome to our humble station." Zaxthor grunted in acknowledgement. "I'm here to inspect your troops, Azara. I've heard disturbing reports about the lax security on this station. Show me your best soldiers." Azara's face tightened, but she nodded. "Of course, Commander. If you'll follow me to the training area, I'll introduce you to our finest." As they walked, Zaxthor noticed a smaller figure among the security personnel. The being was shorter than most, with a lean build hidden beneath standard-issue armor. Something about their stance caught the commander's attention, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Leaning closer to Vex, Zaxthor whispered, "Do you see that small one? What species is that?" Vex squinted, then shrugged. "I'm not sure, Commander. Their helmet obscures any identifying features." Zaxthor's lips curled into a sneer. "Probably some weak species trying to play soldier. We'll see how they measure up." As they entered the large training area, Azara called out to her troops, "Attention! Form up for inspection." The security forces quickly assembled, creating neat rows before the Kraxan visitors. Zaxthor's eyes swept over them, assessing each soldier with a critical gaze. His attention kept returning to the small, mysterious figure he had noticed earlier. With a predatory grin, Commander Zaxthor decided it was time to test these so-called soldiers. He had no idea that his encounter with the small, unassuming figure would soon change his view of the galaxy forever. Commander Zaxthor paced in front of the assembled security forces, his yellow eyes narrowed as he scrutinized each soldier. The training area fell silent, save for the soft hum of the station's life support systems and the occasional nervous shuffle of feet. "So, these are your best warriors." Zaxthor's voice dripped with disdain as he addressed Chief Security Officer Azara. "They look more like a group of tourists than trained fighters." Azara's blue skin darkened slightly, a sign of frustration among her species. "I assure you, Commander, appearances can be deceiving. Our forces are well-trained and capable of handling any threat to the station." Zaxthor snorted, unconvinced. His gaze settled once again on the smaller figure he had noticed earlier. The soldiers stood at attention, their stance perfect despite their small stature. Something about their presence intrigued and irritated the Kraxon commander in equal measure. "You there, small one," Zaxthor barked, pointing at the mysterious soldier. "Step forward." The figure complied without hesitation, moving with a fluid grace that caught Zaxthor off guard. As the soldier approached, the commander circled them, studying their every move. "Remove your helmet," Zaxthor ordered, his voice low and threatening. The soldiers' hands moved towards their helmet, but Azara quickly intervened. "Commander, I must protest. It's against station regulations to." "Silence," Zaxthor roared, causing several nearby aliens to flinch. "I am conducting this inspection, and I will see the face of every soldier here if I wish. Now, little one, remove your helmet." The soldiers' hands paused for a moment, then resumed their movement. With a soft hiss, the helmet disengaged, and the soldier lifted it off. Zaxthor's eyes widened in surprise. The face revealed was unlike any he had seen before. The soldier had smooth, pale skin, two eyes set close together, and a tuft of dark fur on top of their head. Their features were soft, almost delicate, but their eyes held a determined glint that gave the Kraxon commander pause. "What manner of creature are you?" Zaxthor demanded, his curiosity overcoming his initial disdain. The soldier stood tall, meeting the commander's gaze without flinching. "I am a human, sir. Private Sarah Chen of Earth, assigned to Nexus 7 security forces." Murmurs rippled through the gathered aliens. Humans were a relatively new species to join the galactic community, and their presence on such an important space station was unexpected. Zaxthor's lips curled into a sneer. "A human? I've heard of your kind. Soft, weak creatures from a backwater planet. How did you end up here, little human?" Sarah's expression remained neutral, but her voice carried a hint of pride. "I earned my place here, Commander, just like everyone else." The Kraxon general laughed, a harsh, grating sound that echoed through the training area. "Earned your place. Let's see about that. I think it's time we put your skills to the test, human." Zaxthor turned to address the entire security force. "Listen up, all of you. We're going to have a little competition. Your human colleague here will face a series of challenges against my own soldiers. We'll see just how well-trained your forces really are." Azara stepped forward, her forehands clenched in frustration. "Commander Zaxthor, this is highly irregular. Our soldiers are not here for your amusement." The Kraxon commander loomed over Azara, his massive frame casting a shadow across her face. "Are you refusing my request, Chief Security Officer? Perhaps you'd like me to report to the Galactic Council about the lack of cooperation on this station." Azara's antennae drooped slightly, a sign of resignation. She turned to Sarah, her expression apologetic. "Private Chen, you don't have to do this. It's not part of your duties." Sarah squared her shoulders, her gaze never leaving Zaxthor's face. "It's all right, Chief. I accept the commander's challenge." A predatory grin spread across Zaxthor's scaly face. "Excellent. Lieutenant Vex, prepare the obstacle course and combat simulator. We'll start with a test of physical prowess, then move on to tactical thinking. As Vex hurried off to make preparations, Zaxthor leaned in close to Sarah, his hot breath washing over her face. I hope you're ready, little human. You're about to learn the true meaning of strength in this galaxy. Sarah remained unfazed, a small smile tugging at the corner of her lips. I look forward to the lesson, Commander. As the other aliens watched with a mix of concern and curiosity, Sarah began stretching, preparing herself for the challenges ahead. Little did Commander Zaxthor know, he was about to learn some lessons of his own about the capabilities of humanity. The training area buzzed with excitement as aliens of various species gathered to watch the impending challenge. Commander Zaxthor stood tall, his arms crossed over his chest, a smug grin on his face. Beside him, Private Sarah Chen looked small and fragile in comparison, but her eyes shone with determination. Lieutenant Vex approached Zaxthor, saluting crisply. The obstacle course is ready, Commander. We've set it to maximum difficulty. Zaxthor nodded, his yellow eyes gleaming. Excellent. Let's see how our little human friend handles it. He turned to Sarah, gesturing towards the start line. After you, weakling. Sarah took her position without a word, her body tense and ready. Zaxthor signaled to one of his soldiers, a burly Kraxon named Grax, to join her at the starting line. First challenge, a race through the obstacle course, Zaxthor announced. Begin on my mark. The crowd fell silent as Sarah and Grax crouched, ready to sprint. Zaxthor raised his hand, then brought it down sharply. Go. Both competitors shot forward like rockets. The obstacle course was a nightmare of twisting metal, laser barriers, and anti-gravity zones. Grax, with his 4 powerful arms and tough scales, tore through the course with brute force. Sarah, however, moved with surprising agility. Where Grax smashed through barriers, she slipped between them. When faced with a wall, she used her smaller size to find handholds the Kraxon couldn't. In the anti-gravity zone, Sarah's lighter weight became an advantage as she bounded from surface to surface with ease. Zaxthor's grin faded as he watched the human keep pace with his soldier. By the final stretch, Sarah had pulled ahead. She crossed the finish line, a full 3 seconds before Grax, breathing hard but standing tall. The alien crowd erupted in cheers and gasps of disbelief. Zaxthor's face darkened with anger. Beginner's luck, he growled. The next test will not be so easy, human. Sarah wiped sweat from her brow, offering a small smile. I'm ready when you are, Commander. Fuming, Zaxthor led them to the combat simulator. Now we'll test your combat skills. You'll face a series of holographic opponents. Let's see how you handle yourself in a fight. Sarah entered the simulator, her body tense but ready. The air shimmered, and suddenly she was surrounded by hulking alien warriors. Without hesitation, she sprang into action. The onlookers watched in awe as Sarah ducked, weaved, and struck with precision. She used her environment to her advantage, outsmarting opponents twice her size. When faced with a weapon she couldn't overpower, she used clever tactics to disarm her foes. As the difficulty increased, Sarah's movements became more fluid, more instinctive. She anticipated attacks before they came, turning her opponent's strength against them. Even Zaxthor found himself leaning forward, captivated by the display. When the simulation ended, Sarah stood in the center of the room, surrounded by defeated holograms. She was breathing heavily, but her eyes were alive with the thrill of the challenge. Zaxthor's face was a mask of confusion and growing respect. Impossible, he muttered. How can a creature so small possess such skill? Determined to find a weakness, Zaxthor announced the final challenge. Now we test your mind. You will face a tactical simulation against me. Let's see if your species can outthink a Kraxon general. The two were seated at opposite ends of a holographic war table. A complex star map appeared between them, showing fleets, resources, and strategic positions. As the simulation began, Zaxthor moved his forces aggressively, confident in his superior experience. But Sarah's moves were unpredictable, innovative. She used strategies the Kraxun had never seen before, turning apparent weaknesses into strengths. The alien audience watched in stunned silence as the human held her own against the legendary commander. Hours passed, and the simulation grew more intense. Finally, with a brilliant flanking maneuver, Sarah's forces surrounded Zaxthor's command ship. The simulation ended, declaring the human victorious. The room erupted in chaos as aliens cheered, argued, and exchanged credits on bets. Zaxthor sat back, his mind reeling. He stared at Sarah, who stood calmly amidst the commotion. For the first time, the Kraxun commander felt a twinge of doubt about his assumptions. "Who? What are you?" Zaxthor asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah Chen stood straight, her eyes meeting the commander's gaze. "I am human, sir. And I think it's time we had a talk about what that really means." The training area buzzed with excited chatter as aliens of all species discussed the unexpected outcome of the challenges. Commander Zaxthor stood frozen, his yellow eyes fixed on the small human before him. Private Sarah Chen met his gaze steadily, her posture relaxed but alert. "Impossible," Zaxthor muttered, shaking his massive head. How could a mere human? He trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Chief Security Officer Azara stepped forward, a hint of pride in her voice. "Perhaps, Commander, it's time you learned more about humans and their capabilities." Zaxthor's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean? What aren't you telling me about this species?" Sarah cleared her throat softly. "Sir, if I may, I think I can explain. But first, I believe it would help if you heard some stories about humanity's history in the galaxy." The Kraxun commander hesitated, then nodded curtly. "Very well, human. Speak." As the crowd gathered closer to listen, an elderly Zorbanian floated forward. Its translucent body glowed with a soft blue light as it spoke in a whispery voice. "I remember when humans first joined the Galactic Alliance," the Zorbanian said. "Many doubted their worth, just as you did, Commander. But then came the Novarian plague." Zaxthor's eyes widened in recognition. The Novarian plague had been a devastating disease that swept through the galaxy a decade ago, resistant to all known cures. The Zorbanian continued. "While other species fled in fear, humans volunteered to help the sick. They worked tirelessly in contaminated areas, risking their lives to save others. It was a human doctor who finally developed the cure, ending the plague." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. A bulky Kravaki warrior stepped forward next, his voice a low rumble. "Humans proved their worth in battle during the Swarm War," he growled. "When the insectoid Vexery threatened to overrun our colonies, it was a human tactician who devised the strategy that turned the tide. Their unpredictable nature confounded the hive mind of the Vexery, leading us to victory." Zaxthor listened intently, his earlier arrogance fading with each story. He turned to Sarah, his expression a mix of confusion and growing respect. "But how?" he asked. "You're so small, fragile. How can your species accomplish such feats?" Sarah smiled, her eyes gleaming with pride. "Commander, humanity's strength lies not in our physical prowess, but in our adaptability and determination. We come from a harsh world that forced us to evolve quickly and think creatively." She continued, "Throughout our history, we faced countless challenges that should have destroyed us. Instead, we grew stronger. We learned to use our minds to overcome physical limitations. We developed technology to extend our reach beyond our planet." The human's words captivated the audience. Even Zaxthor found himself leaning in to hear better. "But most importantly," Sarah said, her voice filled with passion, "we never give up. Humans have an innate drive to push boundaries, to explore the unknown, to achieve the impossible. It's not about being the strongest or the fastest. It's about perseverance and ingenuity." Zaxthor nodded slowly, beginning to understand. "So, in the challenges, I used what makes humans unique, Sarah finished for him. In the obstacle course, I adapted to each new challenge. In combat, I used creativity to overcome stronger opponents. And in the tactical simulation, I applied unconventional thinking to surprise you. The Krakson commander was silent for a long moment, processing this new information. Finally, he straightened to his full height and addressed the crowd. "It seems I have made a grave error in judgment," Zaxthor announced, his voice carrying across the training area. "I underestimated not just Private Chen, but the entire human species." He turned to Sarah, bowing his head slightly in a gesture of respect that shocked the onlookers. "I offer my apologies, human. Your people have earned their place among the stars, and I was foolish to think otherwise." Sarah returned the bow, a smile on her face. "Apology accepted, Commander. Perhaps this can be the beginning of a new understanding between our species." As the crowd cheered, Zaxthor realized that his encounter with this small, unassuming human had changed not just his view of humanity, but of strength itself in the vast tapestry of the galaxy. As the excitement in the training area began to settle, Commander Zaxthor found himself deep in thought. The revelation about humanity's capabilities had shaken his core beliefs. He turned to Sarah, his curiosity piqued. "Tell me more about your species, Private Chen," he said, his gruff voice softened with genuine interest. "I want to understand what makes humans human." Sarah nodded, her eyes lighting up at the opportunity to share her people's story. "Well, Commander, it's a long and complex tale, but I'll do my best to explain." The crowd of aliens gathered closer, eager to hear more about this intriguing species. Even Lieutenant Vex, who had been skeptical throughout the challenges, leaned in to listen. "Humans come from a planet called Earth," Sarah began. "It's a world of extreme diversity, with burning deserts, freezing tundras, dense jungles, and vast oceans. This variety forced us to adapt to all kinds of environments." Zaxthor nodded, beginning to understand. "So your adaptability comes from your homeworld's challenges." "Exactly," Sarah confirmed. "But it's more than just physical adaptation. Our history is filled with struggles that pushed us to our limits and beyond." She went on to describe how humans had faced countless disasters, wars, and setbacks throughout their history. Yet each time, they emerged stronger, more resilient, and more innovative. "There's a saying on Earth," Sarah explained. "Necessity is the mother of invention. When faced with a problem, humans don't just give up. We find a way to solve it, often creating new technologies or methods in the process." The aliens listened in fascination as Sarah shared stories of human ingenuity. She told them about the Wright brothers who gave humans the gift of flight, about the space race that led to moon landings, and about the development of computers that revolutionized their world. "But it's not just about technology," Sarah continued. "Humans have an incredible capacity for empathy and cooperation. We form strong bonds, not just with our own kind, but with other species too." To illustrate her point, she shared the story of how humans had worked tirelessly to save an endangered alien species on a distant planet, risking their lives to protect creatures they had only just met. As Sarah spoke, Zaxthor found himself reevaluating everything he thought he knew about strength and power in the galaxy. He had always believed that physical might and advanced technology were the keys to success. But here was a species that thrived on creativity, teamwork, and sheer determination. "There's something else you should know about humans, Commander," Sarah said, her voice taking on a more serious tone. "We have a saying: the bigger they are, the harder they fall." Zaxthor tilted his head, confused by the idiom. Sarah explained, "It means that those who seem the strongest often have the furthest to fall when they're defeated. Humans have a history of standing up to bullies and tyrants, no matter how big or powerful they might be." The Krakson commander felt a chill run down his spine, recognizing the subtle warning in her words. He realized that underestimating humans could be a deadly mistake for any species in the galaxy. As the impromptu lesson came to an end, the aliens in the crowd began to disperse, murmuring among themselves about what they had learned. Many cast newfound looks of respect toward Sarah. Zaxthor stood in silence for a moment, processing everything he had heard. Finally, he spoke, his voice thoughtful. "It seems I have much to learn about your kind, Private Chen. Perhaps humans have more to offer the galaxy than I first believed." Sarah smiled, extending her hand in a human gesture of friendship. "We're always happy to share our knowledge and learn from others, Commander. That's another key aspect of being human. We never stop growing, never stop learning." After a moment's hesitation, Zaxthor reached out and carefully shook Sarah's hand, marveling at how such a small gesture could feel so significant. As they stood there, human and Kraxon, the others in the room sensed that they were witnessing the beginning of something important, a new understanding that could change the course of galactic relations forever. As the day's events wound down, Commander Zaxthor found himself in a small conference room with Private Sarah Chen, Chief Security Officer Azara, and a handful of other alien representatives. The atmosphere was charged with a mix of curiosity and anticipation. Zaxthor cleared his throat, his usual bravado replaced by a newfound humility. "Private Chen, I believe you mentioned something about human potential earlier. Could you elaborate on that?" Sarah nodded, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Of course, Commander. One of humanity's greatest strengths is our potential for growth and improvement." She stood up and walked to a nearby display screen, activating it with a wave of her hand. A series of images appeared, showing humans in various challenging situations. "You see," Sarah explained, "humans have this unique ability to push beyond our limits. We call it breaking barriers." The screen showed a human athlete sprinting past a finish line, breaking a world record. Another image displayed a scientist making a groundbreaking discovery. "Throughout our history," Sarah continued, "we've constantly redefined what's possible. 4-minute miles, space travel, cures for diseases once thought incurable. These were all considered impossible until someone did them." Zaxthor leaned forward, intrigued. "But surely there must be a limit to this potential." Sarah smiled. "That's the thing, Commander. Every time we think we've reached our limit, someone comes along and proves us wrong. It's not about being the strongest or the smartest from the start. It's about the drive to become better, to learn, to adapt." As she spoke, more aliens shared their experiences with humans. A Zorbanian scientist recounted how a human intern had solved a complex problem that had stumped their top researchers for years. A Kravaki general described a human soldier's incredible act of bravery that had saved an entire platoon. Azara chimed in, her voice filled with admiration. "I've seen it myself, Commander. The humans on this station are always looking for ways to improve our systems, our protocols. They're never satisfied with good enough." Zaxthor nodded slowly, beginning to understand. "So it's not just about physical strength or intelligence. It's about, what do you call it?" "Determination," Sarah supplied. "Grit. The willingness to face challenges head-on and not give up, no matter the odds." The Kraxon commander stood up, pacing the room as he processed this information. "I've led armies across the galaxy," he mused. "I've seen species with incredible physical strength, with mental powers beyond imagination. But this human factor, it's unlike anything I've encountered." He turned to Sarah, his expression serious. "You said earlier that humans never stop learning. Well, it seems I have much to learn from your kind, Private Chen." Sarah beamed, clearly pleased by the commander's words. "And we have much to learn from you and the other species in the galaxy, sir. That's another key aspect of humanity. We thrive on diversity and collaboration." As the meeting continued, ideas began to flow. Azara suggested a cultural exchange program to help different species better understand each other. A Zorbanian proposed joint scientific ventures to combine the strengths of various races. Zaxthor, to everyone's surprise, put forward the idea of integrated military training. "If we can combine the tactical minds of the Kraxon with the adaptability and determination of humans, He said, "We could create an unbeatable force for peace in the galaxy." As the session came to a close, the room buzzed with excitement. Plans were made, agreements were forged, and a new sense of unity began to take shape. Zax Thor approached Sarah as the others filed out. "Private Chen," he said, his voice gruff but sincere, "I owe you an apology. I judged you, and your entire species, based on appearances and preconceived notions. That was a mistake I won't make again." Sarah smiled up at the towering Cracksun. "Apology accepted, Commander. And thank you for being open to learning. That's a very human trait, you know." Zax Thor chuckled, a sound that surprised even him. "Perhaps," he mused, "there's a little bit of human in all of us. We just need to find it." As they left the room, both Human and Cracksun felt the weight of the day's events. They had taken the first steps towards a new understanding, one that promised to reshape the future of the galaxy. A week had passed since the fateful day of challenges and revelations. The Nexus 7 space station buzzed with a new energy as news of the events spread across the galaxy. Commander Zax Thor's massive warship, the Thunderbolt, still loomed outside, but its presence no longer inspired fear. Instead, it symbolized the beginning of a new era. In the main auditorium of the station, aliens from dozens of species gathered. At the center of the stage stood an unlikely pair, the towering Cracksun Commander Zax Thor and the small but confident human, Private Sarah Chen. Zax Thor stepped forward, his voice booming across the room. "Esteemed representatives of the galaxy, I stand before you today, a changed being. A week ago, I arrived at this station full of arrogance and prejudice. I believed strength came only from physical might and advanced technology." He paused, his yellow eyes scanning the crowd. "I was wrong." A murmur rippled through the audience. It wasn't often that a Cracksun, let alone a high-ranking commander, admitted to being wrong. "Thanks to Private Chen and the human spirit she represents, I have learned a valuable lesson," Zax Thor continued. "True strength lies not in our muscles or our weapons, but in our ability to adapt, to persevere, and to work together." Sarah stepped forward, standing tall despite being dwarfed by the commander. "What happened here last week wasn't just about proving humanity's worth," she added. "It was about recognizing the unique strengths that each species brings to our galactic community." As they spoke, holographic displays around the auditorium lit up, showing images of the new initiatives born from their encounter. There were pictures of Cracksun warriors training alongside agile human soldiers, Zorbanian scientists collaborating with human researchers, and mixed-species crews working together on starships. "We are here today to announce the formation of the Galactic Cooperation Initiative," Zax Thor declared. "This program will foster understanding, promote collaboration, and combine the strengths of all our species." The audience erupted in applause. Representatives from various worlds stood up, pledging their support for the initiative. Chief Security Officer Azarat took the stage next. "As part of this initiative, Nexus 7 will serve as a hub for cultural exchange and joint training programs. We invite all species to participate, to learn from each other, and to grow together." As the presentation continued, Sarah couldn't help but marvel at how much had changed in just a week. She remembered the tense atmosphere when the Thunderbolt first arrived, the disdain in Zax Thor's eyes when he first saw her. Now, here they were, standing side by side, working towards a brighter future for all. Towards the end of the ceremony, Zax Thor turned to Sarah, his expression solemn. "Private Chen, in recognition of your role in bringing about this new understanding, and as a symbol of the cooperation between our species, I would like to present you with this." He held out a small box. Sarah opened it to find a medal, unlike any she had seen before. It was a blend of Cracksun and human design, symbolizing the bridging of their cultures. "This is the first medal of galactic unity," Zax Thor announced. "May it serve as a reminder of what we can achieve when we look beyond our differences and work together." Sarah accepted the medal, her eyes shining with emotion. "Thank you, Commander. I accept this on behalf of all humans and all species who strive for unity and understanding." As the ceremony came to a close, the auditorium filled with cheers and applause. Species that had once been wary of each other now mingled freely, sharing stories and ideas. Outside the station's viewports, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. The galaxy faced many challenges, but with this new spirit of cooperation, the future looked more promising than ever. Sarah and Zaxthor stood at one of the large windows, gazing out at the cosmos. "You know, Sarah," the commander said, using her first name for the first time, "I have a feeling this is just the beginning of something truly remarkable." Sarah nodded, a smile on her face. "I couldn't agree more, Zaxthor. The universe is vast, but together, there's no limit to what we can achieve." As they looked out at the stars, both Human and Kraxan felt a sense of hope and excitement for the adventures that lay ahead. The galaxy would never be the same again, and that was a very good thing indeed.